Subscribe because it is free.
In the grand archives of the Galactic Council, humanity was filed under unpredictable nuisance. No one really feared Earthlings. They weren't the strongest. They weren't the smartest. But they were inconvenient. In just 300 galactic years, about 5 human centuries, they'd gone from local wildlife to interstellar eyebrow raiser. Their expansion rate broke records. Their language had corrupted translation matrices. And their entertainment? Pure chaos. No species had ever weaponized sarcasm and cat videos before. The final straw came during the diplomatic summit of Zenthari Prime. Humanity's ambassador brought snacks. Nacho cheese caused a reactor failure in one of the delegates. The council didn't declare war, but they did hold a vote. Unanimous. One solution: exile. Not war, not extermination, just a gentle cosmic shove toward irrelevance. Humanity was relocated to Kepler 038b, a planet labeled Class Z. No atmosphere. Sub-zero nights. Tectonically unstable. Prior test species sent there had lasted 5 hours, max. The council called it a mercy. A chance to reflect. Off the record, they called it a tomb. Humans were given 3 ships to transport their best minds, basic terraforming kits, and a few survival rations. Oddly, they also brought 80 tons of duct tape. When asked, a human engineer just said, "You'll see." The ships landed without ceremony. Dust rose, then settled into silence. The sky was purple-black, with a weak sun and a sickly moon. Wind tore across cracked ground. No plants. No water. No chance. The first hour was chaos. One scientist passed out trying to inflate a dome manually. Someone else tried to microwave a rock to boil for soup. A small group debated eating the expedition's therapy dog until it bit someone. Day 1 nearly ended in a fistfight over instant coffee. But by nightfall, the tone shifted. They stopped arguing and started building. If nothing else, humans were stubborn. They sealed the cracks in their domes with duct tape and thermal gel. Power came from emergency generators. Heat. Geothermal vents, deeper than anyone expected, hinted at untapped potential. They dug deeper. Within 3 days, the first oxygen farm was running. Algae tanks filtered CO2 and spit out breathable air. Crude, inefficient, but it worked. One crew started a mushroom farm in the vent tunnels. Another team insulated sleeping pods using foil and scraps from landing crates. They called it adaptive recycling. It was garbage, but it was warm. Week 1, and no one had died. The galactic betting pools were already off by 6 days. The council monitored Kepler 038b from orbit, expecting radio silence. Instead, they picked up transmissions. Music. Earth music. Someone was blasting jazz into the void. To alien ears, it sounded like a sonic stroke. To humans, it was hope. Day 10 brought the first proper meal. Potatoes. Ugly, lumpy, genetically modified potatoes grown in volcanic dust with fertilizer made from, well, volunteers. They weren't pretty, but they were food. Morale tripled overnight. The man who played jazz was elected mayor of Dome A. No one remembered his name, but he made a decent stew. By the end of the first month, they had water, condensed from the vapor released by heated stone. It tasted metallic and probably carried at least 3 kinds of cancer, but it kept them alive. Someone labeled it Earth Juice. The branding stuck. Other alien species started tuning in to Earth's open broadcasts, mostly for laughs. They expected whining. Instead, they heard updates about algae growth rates, debates over fungus tunnel zoning laws, and occasional karaoke contests. They laughed, until they realized humans weren't complaining. They were thriving. On a planet designed to kill. Dome B suffered a partial collapse in month 2. A young engineer patched it using 2 beams, a bedsheet, and duct tape. She received a standing ovation and a beer. When asked how she did it, she said, "I watched a guy fix a car with a coat hanger once." Same energy. The internal motto became, patch it, plug it, keep going. Nothing fancy. Just survival, repackaged as culture. Humans had invented civilization in deserts, tundras, and jungles. Lava rocks and darkness. Just another Monday. They gave the settlement a name. Second Earth. A little on the nose, but it stuck. The flag was a sock tied to a metal pole. Not symbolic, just the only clean cloth they had. One corner of the dome became a community center. Another corner became a brewery. Priorities. Still, it wasn't utopia. People got sick. People broke. But they leaned on each other. A psychologist ran group therapy sessions where people painted what they missed. Someone painted a pizza. Another painted their dog. One guy painted the moon. And it looked better than the real thing. He was voted Dome C's cultural ambassador. In the third month, a young boy born on Kepler took his first steps. His parents cried. Not because he was walking, but because he was walking on a planet the galaxy gave up on. That night, every dome dimmed its lights in tribute. No speeches. Just silence, and the quiet hum of generators. The council continued watching, still skeptical. They debated whether humanity was cheating. Had they found a loophole? A hidden cache? A secret power source? But no, just duct tape, geothermal plumbing, and humans doing what humans always did, refusing to die politely. Back on Earth. Now stripped, now empty, the building still stood. But the heart of humanity had moved. And somehow, in the black sky above a cracked and forgotten rock, it had found a way to keep beating. And so, on the edge of extinction, the backwater race did what it always did. It adapted. It built. It grew. They had been sent to die. They decided to live instead. 3 months in, and the novelty of surviving had worn off. Now came the daily grind. Oxygen levels fluctuated like teenage moods. Water filters clogged with microbial gunk. Dome D smelled like feet, socks, and regret. But the people of Second Earth got used to it. Humans can get used to anything. Traffic, taxes, even mushroom toothpaste. They called it character development. The agricultural dome became the heart of the settlement. Rows of squat, stubborn plants grew under UV lamps powered by geothermal energy. A botany student turned hero when she figured out how to crossbreed yeast with native fungi. The result? A spongy, edible, protein-rich paste affectionately named gunk. It looked like regret, tasted like warm cardboard, but kept you full. People joked about opening a restaurant chain. The first location would be called Planet Gunk. Repairs became rituals. Whenever something broke, and something always broke, it was met with a shrug, a strip of duct tape, and a sarcastic prayer. One engineer wrote, "Don't die, please," on every patch. Another decorated her oxygen tank with stickers and called it Jeff. Jeff exploded once. No one got hurt. Jeff got rebuilt. Morale remained weirdly high. Partly because no one had the energy to be miserable, and partly because they kept busy. Someone created a newsletter, The Daily Dust, filled with updates, crop yields, and terrible jokes. Headlines like "Mold Cult Attempts Coup in Dome C" and "Council Still Not Watching, Yay or Nay" gave people something to laugh about over their rationed algae tea. One day, the geothermal plant overheated. A valve cracked, spewing steam through the main corridor. Instead of panic, people ran toward it holding towels and shouting, "Spa day!" They turned the near catastrophe into a bathhouse. Someone even brought cucumber slices. The accident inspired a new section of the dome, Kepler's first official spa, complete with heated rock pools and fungus foot baths. They named it Lava Lounge. Membership was free if you brought your own towel. The small victories mattered. A classroom opened in Dome B. Desks made of storage crates. A whiteboard scavenged from the comms panel. Children studied under the glow of solar bulbs while their parents repaired atmospheric vents or harvested mold. The curriculum included math, history, and how to outrun a structural collapse. Humanity hadn't just survived. It was organizing. Then came the visitors. It started with a blip on radar, an alien cargo vessel passing through the system on a mineral run. The pilot, a beetle-shaped Brelkson named Tick, saw unusual heat signatures and stopped out of morbid curiosity. He expected to find a burning crash site or a graveyard. What he found instead was humans. Humans sipping hot drinks inside glowing domes, trading fungus burgers for homemade tools, sitting in hot springs with algae face masks. One waved at his ship and offered him a foot rub. Tick reported back, confused. "They are cozy," he transmitted. Word spread. The species sent to die had built an oasis. More ships came. Scientists, diplomats, conspiracy theorists. One delegation from the Parnathi Confederation arrived demanding proof of a superweapon. They were shown a shovel, a bag of potatoes, and a mushroom statue of a duck. No one knew who made the duck, but it wore a tiny hat and was declared sacred by accident. Tick stayed and opened a cafe. His signature drink, lava latte, made with boiled root juice and hints of dirt. Surprisingly good. He hired a human barista named Sam, who used foam art to draw tiny angry council faces on every cup. Alien tourists followed. Some expected a zoo. Others found a resort. Kepler 038b was renamed on galactic travel boards. Second Earth, the planet that shouldn't work, but does. Humans embraced the attention. They charged modest fees for dome tours and fungus tastings. A local comedian started doing stand-up, so a Brelkson, a human, and a sentient mold walk into a geothermal bar. He bombed, but the tourists loved him anyway. The council, still monitoring from afar, convened again. Their analysts declared the situation not ideal. The original goal had been to let humanity fade quietly. Instead, they were becoming trendy. An internal memo circulated: human adaptability exceeds projection. Current estimates of extinction invalid. Reclassify to Category 3 cultural hazard. Humans, of course, had already intercepted the memo. It was read aloud during open mic night. A standing ovation followed. Meanwhile, engineers on Kepler continued pushing limits. They developed geothermal batteries, heat-hardened drones, and new insulation made from compressed mushroom husks. One group experimented with gravity deflection panels. The first test sent someone flying through a wall. She got up, laughed, and named it the Oops Drive. Even dome politics evolved. Leadership rotated monthly. One rule: no re-election. Everyone had to try being in charge at least once. People grumbled, but it worked. No dictators. Just democratic grumbling. A new settlement broke ground 80 kilometers from the original site. Dome E, built entirely by volunteers from Dome A and C, was dedicated to science and solar research. They were still figuring out solar on a planet with almost no sunlight, but the optimism was blinding. Someone suggested building a satellite. Someone else was already building it in their garage. And the children, those born on Kepler, had never known Earth. They didn't miss the blue skies or oceans. They loved lava fields, strange rocks, and games like Don't Touch the Radiant Slime. Their laughter echoed through the domes, mixing with the hum of machinery and the occasional pop of an exploding experimental compost bin. Second Earth wasn't beautiful. It wasn't lush or easy. But it was alive. It breathed in recycled air, pulsed with geothermal blood, and thumped to the beat of hammers, laughter, and really bad karaoke. The kind where someone sings both parts of a duet with full commitment and zero talent. Humanity didn't escape doom. They outworked it, outlived it, outlaughed it. And Kepler 038b, the world meant to break them, instead became their proof. Proof that life is less about where you are, and more about who you bring with you, and what you do when the sky turns purple, the water tastes like iron, and your only heat source is angry rocks. They made that work. Of course they did. They were human. The Galactic Council had seen many strange things over the millennia. Planets folding into black holes. Civilizations transcending their physical forms. A species that evolved sentience out of pure spite. But nothing, and they meant nothing, had prepared them for the horror of what they now witnessed on their long-range scans. Humans. Smiling. On a dead world. Kepler 038b was meant to be the end. A dead rock. A footnote. But now it was exporting merchandise. A Brelkson cruiser had returned with souvenir socks that read, "I survived the murder planet, and all I got was this comfy footwear." Tourists were walking around council space wearing shirts with the phrase, "Kepler. Come for the doom, stay for the fungus spa." The diplomats panicked first. The Brelaki ambassador, who hadn't blinked in 76 years, blinked twice during a security briefing. Are they colonizing entropy? Worse. Humans were thriving despite entropy. Council committees were formed. Reports were drafted. Charts were color-coded. Nothing helped. One intern pointed out that humans hadn't just survived, they had established a post-disaster economy. A functioning society based on geothermal engineering, fungal exports, duct tape, and sarcasm. And worse still, other species were watching and learning. The Yalari sent a delegation to Kepler 038b and returned with schematics for thermal filtration systems. The Raktari copied human social dynamics, replacing their rigid caste-based leadership with rotating dome councils, although they misunderstood karaoke night and accidentally sparked a 14-hour screaming ritual. One of the council's disaster analysts sobbed over a pile of paperwork. They're becoming an inspiration. To some, humans were now proof that resilience beat planning. That grit, duct tape, and bad decisions executed confidently could challenge millennia of logic. Memes exploded across the interstellar net. "Human it till you make it" became the slogan of an underground movement. Even worse, people started copying human humor. One alien posted a photo of a half-eaten fungus burger with the caption, "Deadly? Maybe. Delicious? Also maybe." It got 800 million shares. The council issued a directive: no contact with humans unless sanctioned. 3 species immediately ignored it. The Glorvac Collective opened a fast food franchise on Second Earth. Their flagship item was the Human Special, a steaming bowl of nutrient goop with a smiley face drawn in algae. Humans added hot sauce and asked for seconds. One of the Glorvac chefs returned home, declared his loyalty to Earth culture, and started a podcast called Spice and Survival. He wore cargo shorts. No one knew where he got them. Meanwhile, the humans on Kepler were unaware of just how famous they'd become. Well, mostly unaware. They did notice the increase in alien tourists trying to blend in by wearing mushroom-themed robes and mispronouncing every Earth phrase they'd read on galactic social feeds. "May your socks grow fungus," one alien said in greeting. The human replied, "Thanks. Yours too." That became a greeting. And it caught on. The tipping point came when Dome F, still under construction, broadcast the first interspecies musical collaboration. A jazz fungus fusion track featuring a human saxophonist, a Glorvac throat singer, and a percussion section made entirely of slapping potato sacks. The transmission went viral. 2 days later, a top-charting pop band from the Drox Dominion declared Earth culture aesthetic chow score, and released an album titled We Die Loudly. The council had no idea what to do. They tried to bury humans, and the humans built a stage on top of the dirt. At an emergency session, one elder asked, "Are we the problem?" No one answered. Instead, they looked toward Kepler 038b, where humans had just announced the launch of a space balloon, a glorified weather probe powered by solar scraps and hope. It rose slowly into orbit, bouncing slightly, broadcasting a simple message on loop in hundreds of languages. Still here. Still human. Still figuring it out. That balloon was dubbed the middle finger of hope by alien media. It was poetic, slightly threatening, and very much on brand for Earth's diaspora. A week later, the Ixari Empire, longtime human critics, held a press conference to formally denounce the balloon. Mid-speech, a tourist on Kepler offered their ambassador a lava latte and a seat in a hot spring. He accepted. The press conference was cancelled. Photos of him wearing a towel and giggling in the steam flooded the net. More troubling still, human innovations were spreading faster than anyone expected. Their geothermal battery design had been licensed in 16 systems. Their insulation tech was being used in cryofreight. Their mushroom-derived fiber? Stronger than silk, biodegradable, and surprisingly fashionable. A new industry bloomed. Fungi fashion. Earth's exile was becoming a trade partner. That's when the council's tone changed. Suddenly, There were overtures, messages, carefully worded invitations, offers to re-establish dialogue and reintegrate Earth's colony under the banner of shared galactic progress. The humans responded politely, by not responding at all. Too busy, they said. Dome G was under construction. The algae tanks were due for cleaning. There was a hot sauce festival next week. Priorities. The galaxy had never seen anything like it. Not just survival, but flourishing, on the worst rock in the quadrant. Not just defiance, but success, built from scrap, sweat, and stubbornness. And the real twist. They never did it to prove anything. The humans hadn't even been trying to impress anyone. No master plan, no spiteful revenge arc. Just good old-fashioned persistence mixed with ridiculous optimism and a total disregard for impossible. The Galactic Council realized too late. By trying to bury humanity, they'd only handed them a shovel and a reason to dig. Kepler 038b had become a beacon. Not of technology, not of might, but of something far more dangerous. Hope. Contagious, illogical, tenacious hope. And nothing in the galaxy spreads faster than that. Years passed. Kepler 038b, once dismissed as a cosmic coffin, had a waiting list. Entire species applied to study there, to live there, to understand how a bunch of naked apes turned a death sentence into a tourist attraction. Colonists now called it Earth's Rough Draft, and humanity wore the name like a badge of honor. Dome G became a library. Not the quiet, dust-filled kind, but a buzzing hub where anyone could upload their story, their data, their inventions. A Raktari historian once asked why the humans shared everything, even the failures. One human shrugged. Why not? If someone else can fail faster than we did, we've saved them time. You're welcome. Dome H was built underwater, in a lake that boiled 3 times a day. It was a research dome. A bad idea. It exploded. Twice. They rebuilt it. Now it floats. The scientists wear heat-proof suits and answer all questions with, "You do not want to know." But the real change came from the kids. The first generation born on Kepler called themselves the Cinderborn. No Earth nostalgia. No stories of oceans or cities. Their games were different. Lava tag. Don't wake the spores. Diplomatic roast battles, where they'd role-play galactic ambassadors and argue using only sarcasm and historical burns. One game went viral galaxy-wide, Patch It or Pray. It involved deliberately breaking something, applying duct tape, and seeing if it held. The winner was whoever lived. Safety regulations were reviewed. No one listened. These kids didn't just learn survival. They learned joyful survival. They'd grown up under alien suns and made them their own. One of them, Maya Tran, wrote a book titled Second Earth, We Weren't Supposed to. It became mandatory reading in over 400 educational systems. Her final chapter? They sent us here to vanish. So we built something no one could ignore. Not out of anger. Out of purpose. Her words reached further than most weapons ever had. The Galactic Council, now much less council and much more galactic book club, rebranded itself as the Concord. The new goal, cultural exchange, shared resilience, and no more passive-aggressive species exiles. At their first summit held on Kepler 038b, the humans served gunk burgers and cold fungus tea. Dignitaries smiled politely. Most of them asked for the recipe. A few discreetly packed leftovers. That summit also unveiled the Kepler Accords, a new treaty establishing any world deemed uninhabitable must be offered to everyone, not just political undesirables. They called it the Hope Clause. Quietly, everyone called it the Humanity Rule. The legacy of Second Earth wasn't just engineering or stubbornness. It was proof that species could adapt not just biologically, but emotionally, philosophically. An entire galactic curriculum was redesigned around what came to be called the Kepler Principles. Fail loudly. Fix proudly. No plan survives contact with humans. If it looks dumb and works, it wasn't dumb. Hope is the most powerful fuel. Bring duct tape. Always. Back on Kepler, the people just kept going. There were now 11 domes, 2 orbital stations, and 1 floating nightclub. Yes, nightclub. It orbited every 86 minutes. Entry required a jetpack. No refunds. The colony had officially been declared self-governing. Earth, still rebuilding from the damage of centuries past, now looked to Kepler for leadership. Diplomatic envoys traveled between them regularly. The 2 human civilizations felt more like siblings than parent and child. Earth brought memory. Kepler brought momentum. A joint mission launched a probe toward the galactic edge, powered by thermal batteries, lined with fungus insulation, and painted in aggressive neon. It carried music, engineering blueprints, terrible jokes, and one message in over 400 languages. We are humanity. We broke what we were given. Then we built something better. If you're out there, don't give up. You might not be dead. You might be us. It was signed with a mushroom emoji and a smiley face drawn in binary. It confused some archaeologists. It inspired others. In time, Kepler's model became a blueprint for other doomed colonies. Entire fleets were repurposed to revive failed outposts. The motto, "If humans can do it, what's your excuse?" One Rakhtari rebel faction attempted to weaponize optimism. They dropped supplies, left instructions, and broadcast, "You've got this," on loop in orbit around failed colonies. Their enemies didn't know whether to be annoyed or inspired. Meanwhile, the original colonists, those who had survived Dome A's first power loss, the first fungus riot, the first algae explosion, were older now. They held community story nights. Kids would gather around, wide-eyed, to hear about the time Dome D was taken over by sentient mold for a full 48 hours. Someone always asked, "Did you fight it?" The storyteller would laugh. "No. We gave it music. It left. Said we were weird." And everyone nodded. Of course it did. Because if there was one thing humanity had proven, on Earth, on Kepler, across the stars, it was that being weird wasn't a disadvantage. It was the edge. The unexpected. The stubborn. The illogical. The hopeful. The funny. The completely unqualified optimism in the face of certain doom. Humans weren't stronger. Weren't faster. Weren't smarter. But they were the punchline that kept walking after the setup fell apart. And on a planet meant to silence them, they laughed louder than ever. So yes, the galaxy watched Kepler 038b rise from ash. And when the dust finally settled, one truth stood unshaken. You don't survive the end of the world by being ordinary. You survive it by being human.